Well, hello, Rock Church. Man, we are so glad that you guys are joining in with our online campus. My name is Matt, if I've never had a chance to meet you, and I'm one of the pastors here at The Rock. And listen, things are just very different right now. I'm over here at our Conway campus recording this. It is actually Tuesday for us. And right now we're doing this because we are just making the best preparations we can for Hurricane Florence. So some of us here on the East Coast, Hurricane Florence is all anybody's talking about right now. And we, like many of you, are making plans and preparations for hopefully and prayerfully best case scenarios, but also worst case scenarios. And thus, we are filming this a little early so that we can continue on with our live stream services over the weekend. And so, if you're a typical online folk and you join our online campus, we love you guys and you're used to this. Maybe this is your first time ever checking out the online campus, and I'm so glad you are. We do this every Thursday night and for every service on Sunday mornings as well. And so glad that you get to experience this, whether it's from a computer, your TV, or your mobile device as well. And so just want to let you know that the hurricane is a real deal right now, and we have no idea what the weekend's going to hold for us. It should be going on right now if you're watching this, and we're just praying. We really believe that God is in control, that He's not surprised by this at all, and we just want to make sure that as a church we know that we're doing our best really to take care of our campus, but also our community. And so just want to put something in your hands, and that is the Rock C3 app. If you don't have that yet, let me encourage you to download it, especially during this time. This will be the primary way that we're going to be able to communicate with everyone is through the app during this. If power goes out, if internet goes out, we're still going to be able to connect through our cell phones as long as there's cell signal and you have your phone charged up as well. So make sure you download the Rock C3 app. We'll continue to update on services over the weekend. We'll be able to reach out and you'll be able to respond if there's going to be needs that maybe you have during the hurricane. We'll have a form fill out available for you that if you need something, you'll be able to check back and connect with us there. So as well with the Rock app is the normal things. You're able to give through the Rock app. You're able to sign up to serve in areas or starting point or anything like that at any of our campuses as well. So make sure you download the Rock C3 app. So through the wonder of technology, we're able to do the app. We're able to film ahead and continue our live stream as well. So we love you guys. We're going to turn it over to K-Lock, and the band are going to lead a little worship, and then you're going to hear just a powerful message from Josh Finkley, our lead pastor, on really what it means to have core convictions as we head into uncharted waters. So we love you guys. We're praying, and we hope to see you just on the other side of all of this crazy with the uncharted waters of Hurricane Florence. So if you're online or you're in another area, pray for us here in the Carolinas, and we'll check back with you guys soon.
Comes from our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord of all. We lift our eyes to you, exalting. We lift our eyes to you, where our help comes from. Our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord of all. Our eyes to you, exalting one, exalting one.
to grace. I'm fully letting go. I surrender to your ways. The anchor for my soul, Father, you will never change. I love you. I love you. Sing it out. I'm holding on to hope. I'm holding on to grace. I'm fully letting go. I surrender to your ways. The anchor for my soul, Father, you will never change. I love you. I love you.
Sing this tune. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. No. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. Never fail me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again, Jesus. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. You promise. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. Never fail me yet. No. still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me. Yeah. Never fail me. Yeah.
Well, hello, Rock Church. How you guys doing? Good? Good. And man, it's definitely great seeing those of you who are out here right now. And I just specifically also want to just speak to the camera right now, speak to those of you who are watching online, because I know with Florence out there at sea that there is going to be a bunch of you watching online come Thursday night or possibly over the weekend. And what I want to do is I want to welcome you to this experience. And I'll just be honest, this is uncharted territory for me, okay? That we are preparing and doing a digital sermon for those who will be watching later. Yet, that's the beauty of the world that we live in right now. It's the beauty of those who are watching online, that you're able to tune in this way, that you're able to participate and be with us in this environment as we prepare for what might be coming in front of us. And like I said, it's Uncharted, which fits perfectly into our sermon series right now. That Uncharted means this idea of going into the unknown. And honestly, we have no clue what is coming with Florence, all right? That Florence could come and be a direct hit on us, and we'll have to deal with that. Or as I'm praying, as I know a lot of you are praying, as you've been praying, that we are praying that it just turns north, not north towards another town, but north and out to sea, and gets greatly diminished or has very little impact on people and on land. So that's a prayer. But it's uncharted. We don't know what's going to happen with the hurricane because you just don't know. We can't track hurricanes to that level. But here's something I want to do, that it would have been real easy for us just to cancel. It would have been real easy for us not to have people showing up at church and participating in a worship service in the middle of the week. It would have been real easy for us not to do an online experience. But I was unwilling to do that. And here's the reason I was unwilling to do it. One is I know that there are many of you who watch all the time on Thursday nights at 6:30. There's many of you who come to church every Thursday night, and you are part of this family. But I was also unwilling because, man, God has put a message on my heart for this weekend that is impossible for me not to let out. It's impossible for me to hold it in and go, well, we're just going to have to wait till later, because it actually would fly in the opposite direction of the message that God has given me. Because the message that I believe that we need to talk about right now is, what do you do when you hit uncharted territory? What do you do when you hit the unknown? And that unknown can come in many different ways. But what do? Do you turn back? Do you go backwards? Do you forget what you're about? Do you forget who you are? Do you run the opposite direction? Or do you keep pressing forward into uncharted territory? So if you can figure that out, that if we were just saying, well, we're just going to cancel service and not do anything, then basically that's saying, let's just turn away and let's just give up. But what I'd rather say is, no, there's a conviction on my heart to communicate this message, and it is impossible for me to say no and to go backwards, to go towards something comfortable. No, I've got to go forwards and preach this message. And I want you to think about it in these terms. Do you remember Lewis and Clark? Anybody remember the story of Lewis and Clark? You probably heard about him when you were in school, stuff like that. Well, Lewis and Clark were back during the days of like Jefferson, when Jefferson was the president. And Jefferson wanted to find a water passage to the Pacific, all right? And he was looking at how do we get through the Northwest? How do we get through the uncharted territory of the Northwest and of the West? And his goal was, let's find a water passage that will take us all the way to the Pacific Ocean, which will open up trade routes and will open up finances for this newfound America and all that. So he commissioned Lewis and Clark to be navigators. And his job, what he told them is, I want you to go navigate the West with a goal of finding a water passage. Now, make sure you understand those two different terms there. Your mission is to navigate the West. Your goal is to find a water passage. So that's what they did. They took off from the Mississippi, got on the Missouri River, and started heading west, basically northwest. And they thought, we're going to track the entire Missouri River. And when we get to the end of the Missouri River, the tip of it, wherever it is starting, then their guess was that they'd be able to crest a mountain range, crest just a little hill, and then on the other side, see the spring running out and heading westward towards the Pacific. So that's what they did. They jumped in their canoes and they paddled upstream, and they went up the Missouri until they were no longer able to paddle. Then they had to throw their canoes on their backs, and they had to walk this creek bed. And they walked it until they got to, and honestly, I don't know how to say it. I'm going to say Lemhi, Lemhi. All right, that's how it's spelled, the Lemhi Pass. And what it was just this little bitty spring, basically, that they were saying, this is the end of the Missouri River. And in their mind, they could see the crest of the hill in front of them. They thought, all we have to do is get over the crest of that hill and then find it on the backside, and then we'll be able to head towards the Pacific. So when they got to the top of this little hill, what they found was not a slope heading south, but the entire Rocky Mountain range. Snow caps for as far as they could possibly see. And at that moment, Lewis and Clark had a decision. Do we turn back and go to what is comfortable, or do we press forward because we are under a conviction to navigate the West? Because remember, their mission was navigate the West with a goal of finding a water passage. And they had to make a decision in that moment. Are we going to hold to our conviction that we are supposed to navigate the West, or are we going to return to the things that are comfortable? Guys, there's a lesson there. There is a lesson that each and every one of us needs to grab a hold of. Because here's what I've found in life. That if we do not know what our core convictions are, when you get into the unknown, when you get into uncharted territory, and you face a trial, or you face a temptation, or you face a test, when that test comes, if you do not know what your convictions are, you will run to the comfort of the known. And unfortunately, many times the comfort of the known is past life sins, is past problems in our past. And we'll run to the known rather than pushing forward into the unknown. So the challenge really for all of us to grab a hold of right now is, what are our core convictions? So that as we're navigating the unknown, which we all have to do in life, so that when we're navigating the unknown, we will know what we firmly believe. Like Daniel. All right, let me take you back to the story of Daniel. If you were here last week, you remember this, or if you've read it before, that Daniel is a historical person, all right? He lived back around 2,600 years ago, around 600 BC. And Daniel, he was a Jewish young man, a teenager, who was taken captive along with all the other Jews when Babylon besieged the city of Jerusalem. And when he got into Babylon, they saw him and they saw a couple of his friends and said, hey, these guys can make get good leaders. So they basically said, we're going to train you up in our culture. We're going to raise you up over the next 3 years so that you can do what we want you to do, because they were slaves, all right? And in that process, if you remember, I taught this last week, that they tried to rename Daniel, and they tried to rename his friends, all right? And when they tried to rename him, honestly, Daniel, like, we don't see him fighting back. It's almost like you could see Daniel saying, you can call me whatever you want to call me because I know who I am. You know what I mean? Like, while he was in that uncharted territory of Babylon, he's saying, you can call me whatever you want to call me because I know exactly who I am. But then something else they tried to do, when they brought that into his life, he said, nope, not going there, because that's a conviction that I have. And that's what I want to do. I'll pull it up on the screen here. This is from Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. It says this: but Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food and the wine given to them by the king. He asked the chief of staff for permission not to eat these unacceptable foods. All right. Now, you might read that and it might just come up and go, okay, what's that mean? Let me break it down for a little bit, all right? It wasn't that Daniel was saying the king's food's no good. All right. It wasn't like he was saying, no, I don't want to eat that, that I don't want to participate in what the king is doing. He didn't have a problem with the king's food and the king's wine. What he had a problem with is that he had made a decision as a young man to follow the law that God had given all of the Jewish people. And the Jewish people were told to follow very specific dietary laws. And what the food that the king would have been given them would have gone against the conviction that he had. And it would have been things like, maybe it was pork, maybe it was some kind of ravenous animal. But there were specific laws that all the Jewish boys, all the Jewish people knew, we can't eat that food. And Daniel held that conviction that since he was young, he didn't eat that kind of food. So he was like, no, I can't do it. And then he also said that he didn't want the king's wine. So that would tell us that he had made a decision in his life to abstain from alcohol. So Daniel was saying, I've made a commitment to my God not to eat certain food and not to drink wine. And because of that conviction, I will not eat of it. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. If you're a slave in a foreign land where most of the slaves were thrown in jail, most of the slaves were put under extreme situations, but you actually got to go to the king's house. And the king said, I want to feed you from my supply. Like, most slaves at that moment are going to be like, all right, well, if I have to be a slave, well, at least I get to eat well. But Daniel in that moment said no. Why? Because he had a conviction. Amen. He had a conviction. And I want you to think strongly about this for a second. I'm saying that to those of you who are sitting here right now in Conway, but I'm also saying that to all of you who are watching online. I want you to really think about something. Are you convicted of some certain things in life? I'll be honest, I was challenged with this. It was back in early July that I was reading a book, and I was reading a book about Daniel and prepping for this series that we're in right now. And as I was reading, the author asked a question, and he simply said this. He said, what are your core convictions? Because if you don't know your core convictions, when you get tested, then you're going to leave your convictions and you're going to run towards comfort. And he asked that question in the book, and it made me really wrestle with it. Like, I know I have some core convictions, but have I really ever listed them out? Like I know they're in there, but do I really know what they are? And I sat down for the next several hours. I was sitting at a beach in Mexico, and I just started writing down in my journal. I just started writing down, I have this belief, I have this belief, I have this belief, meaning I have this conviction, I have this conviction, I have this conviction. And I ended up coming up with a long list of things that I really believe I live my life by. And then I just started looking at that list, and I started saying, okay, let's let's work this list because that really goes with that and this really goes with that. And I wanted to boil my list of core convictions down to just a nutshell of things I could say, these are the things that I really believe. These are the things that really matter in my life. And I just want to share them with you, just from my heart to yours, all right? From my heart to yours, that I want to just take a second. I just want you to know that these are the things that I firmly believe, that I hold to the core, the things that matter to me. And the first thing that I'd say really matters is God. Amen. God matters. That I hold a core conviction that God matters. And I'll be honest, there was times in my life that I didn't live this out. There was times in my life that I didn't believe this. And my first memory, I don't know at what age I was able to start remembering things, but from my littlest of age up through my teenage years, I did not live life in a way that God mattered. I lived life in a way that I mattered, right? You know what I'm saying? That it was all about me and I could care less about God. And honestly, it didn't work very well. And some of you get that because some of you come from the same place I did. And it might have been during your teenage years. It might have been well into your adult years that you were living life for yourself. You're like, I'm what matters. And you realized it ain't working. And then you turn your life over to God and you say, God, I need help. And for me, it was sitting on a bed saying a prayer to an unknown God. And in the midst of saying that prayer to an unknown God, he came to my rescue. And guys, I can tell you that God matters to me because of what he's done and because of who he is. And here's what I mean, like what he's done, that God created this place. He came to this earth as a son named Jesus. And when Jesus came to this earth, he went and he ministered to people. He loved on people. He died on a cross and he rose from the dead. And we have eyewitness accounts of this. So I think about what he's done in the way that he conquered death and he conquered sin. All right. And that's all great stuff that I didn't understand at the time. I understand it now, but at the time I didn't understand that. What I understood at the time is he rescued me, that he changed my life. And then as I started to track with him and started to try to follow him and tried to become a little bit more like him, then I understood the weight of all that it is that he said. Then I understood the weight of all that it is that he did, and it helped me understand who he truly is. And because of who he is and because of what he's done, God matters to me. And then I'll say this, another core conviction is people matter. That I just believe that people matter. That one, if you just look at the story of God and how he sent Jesus, that gives us proof that people matter because he's willing to sacrifice himself for our sins. He's willing to die on that cross for us. Well, that gives us all hope. If we look at the eyewitness accounts of Jesus and what Jesus did while he was on this earth, we see that people mattered in the way that he reached out to everybody. And because of that, I look at that and I go, man, people matter to me. And here's what I want to make sure you catch when I say that. That means all people matter. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what ideologies you have. It doesn't matter what orientation you are. It doesn't matter what color you are. To me, all people matter. And I'll be honest, this is a struggle for me. And I'll say it especially in this way. That every race of mankind matters. I believe that, no matter what color your skin is. But if I believe all people matter, I have to confess something, and this is hard. This is hard for me because that is just something that I just so firmly believe. That I believe the racist matters also. All right, and guys, I sat at my desk yesterday with two of our staff members with tears in my eyes, and I wasn't ready for the tears to come, but because that's a struggle for me, because I have a hard time loving the racist, but the racist matters to God, and here's why, because even if your belief is not in line with God, If your sin habits are not in line with God, if you're doing something that is not of his word or not of his character or not what he wants, you still matter. So I have to believe that the power of God can work in everybody's life. And so it's hardest for me, especially in that area, but I have to believe that down as a core conviction in my life, that if people matter, everybody matters, which means all races matter and those who are racist matter as well. And if that's what I believe, then I got to believe that God can work through people because people matter. Now, in my life, I will say this, that the most important people in my life is my wife and my kids. And then from there, it goes out to everyone. So if all people matter, then this is what I have to know, that there's some things that I have to have in order in my life. Meaning this, that I believe his word matters. And I want you to see the trajectory of here. That if God matters and people matter, and if I know that I've got to reach out to all people, then I need his word to direct my life. Because without his word, there's some things in my life that will not call me to reach out to all people. You see what I'm getting at here? So I have to see that all three of these work together. And because his word matters, then it's going to play out this way. That his word tells me how to love my wife, who matters. That his word tells me how to love my kids who matter. That his word tells me how to love people because they matter. That his word tells me how to help somebody who's got a sin habit because they matter. But his word matters, and his word helps me understand what sins might be in my life. His word helps me understand what deficiencies I got going on. His word helps me understand some areas in my life that he needs to work on so that I can become more like him. Amen. You see how that plays out? Because if his word matters, people matter, he matters. So I want to follow his word. That's why I want to be in it daily. Not as a pastor. I want to be in his word daily as a person. Because I need Jesus and I need to see what he has to say to me today. Amen. Which takes me to the next thing that matters in my life, and that's character. That I believe character matters. And again, I want you to see how this all plays out together. That if I allow my character to fall, then that affects how I love people. If I allow my character to go the wrong direction, then that means I'm not loving my wife the way I should. If I allow my character to go wrong direction, I'm not taking care of my kids. I'm not taking care of other people. If my character falls, then I'm not becoming more like Christ, where his word says that I need to become more like him. Do you see how these are all kind of coming together? Amen. So these are important things to me. And then the other side with my character is I know that God has called me to not just love people, but to live on mission for him. And if I allow my character to falter, if I allow my integrity to go the wrong direction, then that's going to affect the way that I'm able to love people and the way that I'm able to love God. So I've got to have my character in check because the last one, the mission matters. The mission of God matters. And what Jesus did is he came to this earth to set all people free. And the way he wanted to set all people free is through him, through his life, that he could forgive us of sins and he could set us on track with him. And what Jesus did is he rose from the dead, and for the next 40 days, he walked with people and he talked to his disciples. But then on that last day, he looked at each and every one of them and said, guys, I'm leaving, but the mission is not complete. The mission is now in your hands, and you need to carry out the mission. And for you to carry out the mission, well, how are you going to do that? Well, you got to have your character in check. You got to have my word in your life. You've got to love people. And the only way you're really going to be able to love people is if you love me. That's right. So do you see how all of these play together? And for me, these are my core beliefs. These are the things that I am convicted of. And I'm not saying that these 5 have to be your convictions. What I would say, though, is that you need to figure out what you are convicted of. Like, what convictions do you have? And I would encourage you to base them upon God and his word, all right? That's where I would encourage you to base your convictions out of, all right? But I would challenge you to really wrestle through, what are your core convictions? Because if you don't know what they are, when you get tested, it will be easy to go backwards rather than forwards. And we will be tested. Each and every one of us will be tested. Let's look at Daniel for a second. Going back to this scripture here. This is what it says. Please test us. This is Daniel. This is Daniel talking to the chief of staff of the king. And he says, please test us for 10 days on a diet of vegetables and water, Daniel said. At the end of the 10 days, see how we look compared to the other young men who are eating the king's food. Then make your decision in light of what you've seen. What Daniel is saying right then at that moment is he's saying that I want you to test me. I want you to take a moment, and I want you to see that after 10 days that we're going to be in good shape. He's saying, put me to the test because I have such a strong conviction about this. And here's reality. We're all going to be tested. And I'm going to tell you a couple of ways that we're each going to be tested. One, we're going to be tested through temptation. As you go through life, we're all going to be tempted. And when you get tempted, if you do not know your core convictions at that moment, it will be so easy to fall backwards into the comfort of sin. Let me just be real with you for a second. I love sweets. All right? I absolutely love hot Krispy Kreme donuts. I love any kind of bread. I love any kind of Little Debbie snack treat. You know what I mean? If somebody bakes something, I'm going to eat it. And for many years of my life, that's all I did. Until at the beginning of this year, I got a bad health report that I had bad cholesterol. And I looked at my doctor and I said, before we treat it with drugs and medicine, I want to try to just get healthy, all right? And y'all know, I do not exercise, all right? I've confessed that many times. That's not part of my norm. But what I did is in January, I said no, all right? I'm not going to eat unhealthy anymore. That I'm going to say no to the sweets. I'm going to say no to the breads and stuff like that. And guys, I've said that so many times in my life because I was always like, oh, I want to be a little bit healthier. But here's what happened. I got a bad health report. I'd heard that my father, who I do not know, passed away of heart disease at a young age. So when I got a bad health report, I said, wait, people matter, which means my family matters. And if my family matters, I want to be here as long as I possibly can be, as far as it depends on me. All right? And because the mission matters, I know God has called me to preach his gospel, so I want to be on this earth as long as I can, preaching his word, as long as it depends on me. So I made a decision on February 1st to say no to that stuff, all right? And since then, I've been avoiding it. That I've just said no to eating the sweets, all right? And you might have noticed I've lost a few pounds, okay? I'm down 40 pounds right now. I had no plan on losing 40 pounds, thank you. I had no plans on losing 40. It just happened. My plan was I just want to get healthy. And guys, I work in an office that we have a baker in the back that bakes incredible things for our coffee bar. Oh, Sir Confection, Sage is amazing. And I love all of the stuff that she makes, but I had to say no. And here's reality. I'm not tempted by it. I can stand and look at that sweet tray all day long because I have a conviction right now that I'm not going there. If you don't get a conviction, then when you're faced with that temptation, you'll fall. Let me just make it real. Let me just talk to the men who are here. Let me talk to the men who are watching right now. That if you don't have a strong core conviction when it comes to your purity, when it comes to lust, then you'll go the wrong direction. Here's what's going to happen. If you're married, you need to have a mindset that you're going to live a pure life towards your wife. If you're not married, then you need a core conviction of how you're going to live a pure life. Because here's what's going to happen in the world that we live. You're going to be on your computer. and some junk email is gonna come through, some spam somehow. It's gonna happen at some point in your life where you're gonna have an email that you know if you click on it, you can immediately look at pornography. Immediately. And if you do not have a strong core conviction that I'm not gonna hit that button, then it's just, why not hit it? Or if you're not married, all right? And if you haven't made a strong core conviction about what kind of purity lines you're gonna put when you're dating, then what's gonna happen is if again, speaking to the guys for a second, that if she shows up and she's saying, hey, no, I wanna sleep with you, and next thing you know, you find that she's naked right in front of you, you're not gonna say no as a guy. If you have not made a decision and drawn a line in the sand and have a core conviction about it, you will fall to that temptation. Amen. So we have to know what kind of convictions that we have in all areas because we will be tempted. Look at this scripture. It says this in James chapter 1, verse 13 and 14. And remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, God has tempted me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. And they cause us to sin, and sin, when it is given full born, it leads to death. So I want to challenge you in this area, have some strong convictions so that when temptation comes, you can say no. Eve, she didn't have a strong conviction. Adam did not have a strong conviction. Jesus, when he was tempted, strong conviction. I am not going that direction. I am not giving up the mission of God. I am not giving up my place with God. I am not giving up my relationship with God. I know what his word says. I am convicted of this. We will face temptation. And when you face temptation, know your convictions so that you can say no and not go backwards into sin, but you can go forward into the unknown territory. But it's also this, you'll also be tested through trials. You'll be tested through trials. Look at what it says here. This is in Romans chapter 5. It says, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance, and endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation. We will be tested by temptation, but we will also be tested by trials. Let me keep reading. It says this in James, going back to the book of James. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles, you could put the word trials there, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. And when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Amen. I want you to recognize this. You're going to face trials. You're going to face hurricanes. All right? They're going to come. Hurricanes are going to come into our lives, and we've got to be ready to acknowledge them. Because when that trial comes, when you're faced with that situation, you need to remember what to hold on to. You need to remember your convictions. Because think about it this way, when that storm comes into your life, you can have a conviction, God matters. And because God matters, I know God is for me, and God can help me, and God can rescue me. So whatever trial, whatever storm I'm going through, I'm not going to run away from God and go backwards. I'm going to run towards God and go forward. Well, that trial might look like something else. That trial might look like a health scare. And in the middle of that health scare, you might hear about cancer and you might want to just throw up your hands and say, well, I guess there's no hope. No, in the midst of that storm, in the midst of that trial, the testing that comes, then I want you to make sure that you do not run away from God, that you run towards him for help. All right? I think about it this way, that maybe all of a sudden you lose your job. Maybe all of a sudden you look at your bank account and it's in the red, not in the black. And if you have a strong core conviction, then you're going to know, I'm going to figure out a way to get through this without putting myself in a bad situation. If you don't have a conviction about debt, then what you're going to do when that hits is you're going to be like, give me a credit card. Let me ring it up. Let me do what I've got to do because I've just got to make it through today. But if you have a strong core conviction, what you're going to do is you're going to still run towards God and say, how do I get through this rather than how do I incur more and more debt that's going to put me in trouble later? Or think about depression. I mean, that's a real issue. We all know that is going on. That maybe you're going through a trial and all of a sudden depression hits you. But if you have a core conviction that you know that God is for you, then what you can do with that depression is you can walk through it. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy. I'm not gonna say it's gonna end overnight. That you might go through that depression for years. But if your conviction is set in the right place, your mind won't go towards suicide. You see what I'm saying? That if it starts to go that way, you're going to be able to say, wait, no, I know that God is for me. I know that I matter. I know who I am. I know that people matter. I'm going to avoid that thought process that takes me towards suicide. And I'm going to do everything I can, even as I walk through the depression, because I know depression is real. It is real. It is real. It is real. But rather than allowing depression to get the best of you, you say, no, with this depression, I'm going to go into the unknown, and I'm going to fight through this trial because I know God is still with me. And I know that's a real issue. We're going to hit that issue full on in about a month and a half. But I want you to hold on, and I want you to go forward, not go backwards. And for that to happen, you got to put some convictions in place, because testing will come through temptation, and testings will come through trial. But with God and with the help of others, it can strengthen us. We can endure. We can be developed. We can be complete. And we can make it through this life. So here's what I'm going to challenge us to do. Is we're going to move into a time of response. And man, I know this is going to look different today. But let me speak just straight to those of you online for a second. That we're gonna have some songs of worship playing right now. But what I want to make sure that you do right now is I want you to take some time and maybe pull out your phone, maybe pull out a pad of paper and a pen. And I want you to just start writing out, man, what are some convictions I have? Because when trials come, when temptation comes, I want you to hold on. And not just hold on, but I want you to press forward. And I want you to make it through the unknown because you have convictions. And I don't want you just to hit end when the message is done. I want you to spend some time writing out your core convictions. And then just spending time and just pushing into them and thinking through them and saying, man, what true convictions do I have in life in whatever area it is? But write it down so that you know, so you can draw that line in the sand and so you won't ever cross over it. And I say that for those of us in this auditorium as well, that I don't want us just to stop. I want you to spend some time right now. In the same way, maybe it's with a phone. Maybe it's just in a time of prayer. But really think about, what are my core convictions that I'm going to hold on to? Would you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you right now for everyone who is hearing this message. And God, I pray right now for those who are struggling with depression, with those who are struggling because of life situation, with those who are struggling because of storms, with those who are struggling because maybe Florence has hit and it's done some devastation in some lives. God, I pray that you would help us to all hold on, and that you would help us to navigate knowing we have convictions that are down deep in our core about you and about life. So God, I just pray. And God, I pray that we would all press forward, that we would all move forward, and that we would all go into the unknown with core convictions about you and about life, because you have so much in store for us. So God, I pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me into his love for me. His love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Through lust He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I love these words. I love this truth because we're chosen.
I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. You give life, you are love. You bring light into the darkness. You give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, holy. You give life, you are love. You bring light to the darkness. You give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, holy. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, holy. To you only, great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, oh. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, holy. Great are you, Lord. Oh, great are. Let's sing that one more time. It's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you, holy.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's message online. And just want to remind you again that we do this all the time, that the online campus is something that we really believe in. We really love the community that is a part of our online campus. And so here's what we want you to do. We want you to respond wherever you're at right now. If you're somewhere in the U.S. that's not affected by the hurricane, man, just really get together, maybe with your family or with some friends, or maybe just by yourself with the Lord, and really begin to just write down what your core convictions are, where you're drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, this is what I believe, and this is really what I stand for. If you're here in maybe in Conway area or in the Carolina areas, and you've been impacted by the hurricane, but not in a bad way, maybe you're just together as a family, maybe you're just holed up in a house and the power's out, maybe you're a little bored, we have no idea what's going on just yet. But maybe as a family for this first time ever, you can sit down and really begin to view what your core convictions are together as a family. And a reminder, and I'm praying this isn't happening, but maybe there's something going on. Maybe you've been devastated by the hurricane and you need some help. We've made a way available for that, for you to communicate that to us as a church through the Rock C3 app. So make sure you download that if you have cell service in charge, and you reach out to us and let us know how we could best serve you. So we love you guys, and we hope to check back in with you soon and see you guys. Thanks so much for tuning into the live stream. And if you need anything, we're here. We're praying for you, and we love you guys. Take care.